He is the Ohio State Director of the Convention of States. You can find them online at conventionofstates.com to talk about and give us some positive updates. Bill Scott, welcome to the 55 KRC Morning Show. It's terrific having you on today.
Thank you. Good morning, Brian. It's my pleasure to be here, and thanks for hosting us again. Pleasure.
Happy to do it. My son's a very astute and very smart young man, and he has taken a keen interest in the Convention of States movement, and I think he's actually even agreed or helped wants to volunteer for it. But as of right now, and congratulations, you've got 100,000 Ohioans signing on to the petition calling for Convention of States. Now, explain to my listeners the process. This is pursuant to Article 5 of the United States Constitution. Explain to my listeners the process that we're going through and the motivation for wanting to call the Convention of States.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Well, basically, Article 5 of the Constitution is the way for the Constitution to be amended. And there are two ways. The first way is that the Congress itself can propose amendments, and when they have 2/3 of the states approve them, then they go out for ratification, and it becomes an amendment. The founders provided a second way for amendments by the people, and that is what Article 5 is all about here. The people in the states, when 2/3 of the states get together and say, we would like to have a convention, and they narrow their topic down to similar areas so that they aggregate together, then this convention is called, and it's the same process at that point as if the Congress had done it. So this has never been done yet, but we hope to be the first one and have the people's voice heard by having this convention.
Understood. And thus far, and before we get to this current situation in Ohio, so far, 18 state legislatures have already passed this Convention of State resolution. So there's obviously a momentum out there. And as I read from the materials from Convention of States, 17 more are considering it. And, of course, Ohio is one of them. But Ohio has been considering this for a while. Apparently last year, the Ohio introduced HJR 1 that went then to the State and Local Government Committee. They've had other bills in front of it concerning Convention of States. Why is Ohio stalled, and what's the impediment? Who's arguing against it?
Well, you're right. We have HJR 1 is in the House right now, and I'm also happy to report that the Senate recently took up our resolution this month as well, and Senate Joint Resolution number 4. So we're now introduced in both houses, which is a big step for us. We have been down this path a number of times. This is the 4th General Assembly where Convention of States has had resolution before both or one of the chambers. And this year we, as I said, have 2. House Joint Resolution 1 was introduced last year. We have already had 3 hearings on House Resolution 1. The sponsors have testified, our Convention of States supporters have testified, and the opposition has testified as well. There'll probably be at least one more hearing where interested parties of both opponents and supporters will get a chance to go before the committee. So in terms of why it hasn't passed yet, well, it is a process that takes some time, and there are passions on both sides, as you can imagine. And the legislatures are cautious when they hear things that is not supported 100% by all their constituents. So we believe we have the better case, and we hope to be successful in this General Assembly this year.
Now, does this, the being in favor of joining Convention of States or being against it, does that fall clearly along party lines? You would think, and let us qualify that question first and address an initial concern that I had, Bill Scott, which was, well, wait a second. If you call Convention of States, doesn't that also give the liberal left-wing socialist nut jobs an opportunity to want to amend the Constitution to give the federal government greater power? You've got that problem addressed up front because the proposed Convention of States is limited, isn't it? Can you tell my listeners how it's limited?
Yes, it is limited to 3 topics, and those topics are fiscal responsibility, term limits for people in the federal government and agencies and Congress, of course, and limiting the power, scope, and jurisdiction of the federal government. Basically, who decides, we the people or the federal bureaucrats? So the topics must fall in one of those three, and if they don't, then they're not relevant. And if the people on the far fringes want something strange proposed, first of all, they got to get on a committee to be appointed and be in the convention, and something like taking away the Second Amendment or something strange like that would never gather the support.
Of course.
To get through the committee. Yeah.
All right. Now, understanding as we do now that the proposed Convention of States deals with limiting the authority and jurisdiction of the federal government, imposing fiscal restraints on spending and taxation, and establishing term limits for federal officials. Now, back to my initial question. Does it clearly fall along party lines, the opposition or support for this, or are there, it would be odd for me to hear, but maybe not, are there Republicans that are against this concept?
Yes, strangely enough, there are. And there are folks on the Republican side and the Democrat side that support it. The Republicans that don't support it are basically fearful of things like runaway convention, which is a myth. This convention will not run away. There are safeguards in there, and many safeguards would prevent a runaway.
That's the point I was making.
Think that,
that my initial concern about this was the quote-unquote runaway that you're talking about. But again, you've satisfied me with our prior conversations, and the limits are very clearly defined. So that seems to negate any argument to the contrary.
That is correct. And back to your issue about support amongst the parties. It's true that the most support at this point has been through the GOP. However, interestingly enough, this past month, the state of Massachusetts, a deep blue state, has passed our resolution in one of its committees.
Wow.
And it was passed with a majority Democrat votes. I mean, it's a Democrat-controlled state, and yes. So we'll wait to see what happens if it gets to the floor, but that is a big breakthrough.
That sure is. That has actually taken me by complete surprise. I never would have. I'm not a betting man, but I would have certainly bet really strongly against that actually happening. Now, you need a total of 34 states to call the convention. So if 18 have already, my high school math coming back here, if 18 have already done it and the 17 who are considering it do it, then you've got what you're asking for.
All right, we're getting there, certainly. And I will tell you that we have 18 now, but we're probably going to have 19 within another week or two here. South Carolina will likely be our 19th state. It has passed both houses in South Carolina. However, there was an amendment that had to fix something in one of the houses, so it's going back to the other house. And it'll likely be reconciled and passed here within the next couple of weeks. So we're excited that that'll be state number 19. Just this year, we passed in several states. We passed in Nebraska. We passed in Wisconsin. And just this past couple of weeks, we passed in West Virginia, which that one was pretty exciting for us because it passed in both chambers on the same day.
Wow.
It passed in the House in the morning. Yep. It passed in the House in the morning, and within an hour, the President of the Senate walked it over from the House and brought it in, and it passed by a voice vote overwhelmingly. So first time ever having passed the same day in a state.
Well, thanks to the leftist environmental policies, there's been a real sea change in the West Virginia population's political views. There's no doubt about that. I think they poll in like 75% Republican now. All right, well, let's just address the elephant in the room for me and most more strict constructionist believers in the Constitution. We shouldn't have to do this. The Constitution itself already limits the federal government's powers to the specifically enumerated ones. The 10th Amendment says that, although I know the Supreme Court's never paid attention to it. But the problem is, and I believe in the Convention of States, primarily because of the erosion of those limitations on federal government by the court decisions, and my favorite illustration of that is Wickard versus Filburn from the 1930s, which says that basically growing tomatoes on your own yard is actually interstate commerce, even if you eat them in your own home. That's the insanity that allows the federal government to have access to us. You can effectively reverse the effect of that decision through the Convention of States.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we had a simulation in 2016 to see how this process would work, and it was a very good simulation. All 50 states participated. Most of them sent current or former legislators, and they spent a long weekend in Williamsburg going through this. And one of the proposals that they came out of this was exactly that, to fix the Commerce Clause so it's back to its original intention. And I think Mark Levin, in his book on Liberty Amendments, also dealt with the Commerce Clause. So while the topics will be decided by whoever ends up being at the convention, I think it's fair game to say that something like the Commerce Clause will be taken up.
I would like to think so. All right, and before we part company today, Bill Scott, who is the Ohio State Director at Convention of States, again, online, easily found at conventionofstates.com. The problem of federal money. They take it from our taxes. We labor and sweat over it. It's effectively slavery on behalf of the federal government because they take whatever slice they want based on your income level, which can change at any moment in time. They take it to Washington, D.C., and what paltry sum they return to us always comes back with hundreds of pages of caveats and contingencies and mandates and edicts on what we can and cannot do with the money. Therein lies one of the big control elements. We don't have to take the money. We don't have to capitulate to that by not taking it, but many states would like the money back because they have projects that they don't have enough money to do themselves. How do you deal with that element?
Well, that could certainly be a topic under the fiscal restraints plank of the platform as well. And perhaps something like no strings attached could be part of the limits on the fiscal responsibility of the federal government, that they can block grant things back to the states and no strings attached. That would be a possible discussion topic.
Well, I would hope that it would be a discussion topic, because if you don't take that ability away from them, then we either have to deny the money. I remember when they did this to the state of Ohio in terms of our drinking age. If you don't change it to 21, you're not going to get federal highway funds. I mean, seriously? Oh yeah, that's what they do. So you in essence are your hands are tied relative to the money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how about the 16th Amendment? You think that ought to be up for grabs?
Yeah, there you go. Well, it sounds to me that if it happens, there's going to be plenty to talk about at the Convention of States. Let's make it happen. What would you like my listeners to do other than sign a petition or contact their elected officials here in the state of Ohio?
Yeah, I would like them to go to their website, conventionstates.com. If they haven't signed the petition, please sign it. And also educate yourself. This movement is really all about education. We are educating the public as to what their duties are as citizens. As you know, you haven't taught civics in high school in a very long time, and I think it's indicative of the fact that we have many homeschooling families. They still teach civics to their kids. They're joining our movement in droves. So our job is to have people learn. So please go to the website and take a look. There's lots of things there to educate yourself about this process.
And double down on that, Ohio State Director Bill Scott at Convention of States.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.